The massive space station hung in the darkness like a metal flower blooming between the stars. Orbital Station Gamma 7 stretched for kilometers in every direction, its arms reaching out to catch ships from across the galaxy. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds called this place home, at least temporarily. They came here to trade, to deal, to fight, and to find fortune among the stars. Maya worked in the cargo bay on level 17. Her small frame moved easily between the towering stacks of containers, each one marked with symbols she had learned to read over the past 6 months. The work was hard but honest. Every credit she earned went toward paying off the debt on her ship, a beat-up cargo hauler that had broken down just outside the station's shipping lanes. The other workers gave her space, not because they disliked her, but because she was human. Most of them had never seen a human before Maya arrived. They whispered about her pale skin and strange eyes, the way she moved without the heavy steps of their own kind. Some called her fragile. Others used the word Deathworlder, though they seemed confused about what it meant. Maya did not care what they called her. She had work to do. The Grand Combat Arena sat at the heart of the station like a jewel in a crown. Every day, warriors from across the galaxy gathered there to test their strength against each other. The crowds loved it. They bet enormous sums on the matches and cheered for blood. The champions became rich and famous. The losers often became dead. Maya had never been to the arena. She had no interest in watching people hurt each other for sport, but she had to walk past it every day on her way to and from work. The sounds that came from inside made her stomach turn. The cheers and screams reminded her of things she preferred not to remember. On this particular day, Maya was moving a shipment of rare metals from the docks to a trading post near the arena. The container was heavy, even for her, and she was being extra careful. The metals inside were worth more than she made in a year. One mistake could cost her everything. She was almost at the delivery point when it happened. A group of rowdy arena spectators stumbled out of a nearby bar, drunk on alien alcohol and high on the violence they had just witnessed. They were laughing loudly and pushing each other around, taking up most of the corridor. Maya tried to squeeze past them with her cargo, but one of them bumped into her. The container shifted in her grip, and she had to set it down hard to keep from dropping it. The impact made a loud clang that echoed through the corridor. The group stopped laughing and turned to look at her. Maya immediately knew she was in trouble. These were not just any spectators. These were Vorthan, the reptilian warriors who dominated the arena circuit. Their scaled skin gleamed under the corridor lights, and their yellow eyes fixed on her. With predatory interest, the largest of them stepped forward. Maya had seen his picture on arena posters around the station. Krax, the current champion. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his massive frame covered in natural armor plates that looked like they could stop a laser blast. His claws were as long as Maya's fingers and sharp enough to cut through steel. "Look what we have here," Krax said in heavily accented standard. His voice was like gravel grinding together. "A little Deathworlder playing with the big containers." The other Vorthan laughed. One of them made a comment in their own language that Maya did not understand, but the tone was clear enough. They were making fun of her. Maya kept her head down and tried to lift the container again. She just wanted to finish her delivery and get back to work. But Krax was not done with her. "You know what I think?" he said, stepping closer. "I think you Deathworlders are the weakest species in the galaxy. You pretend to be tough because you come from a dangerous world, but look at you. Small, soft, pathetic." Maya finally looked up at him. She had learned long ago that bullies got worse when you ignored them completely. "I'm just trying to work," she said quietly. Krax laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "Work? This is work for a real being?" He reached out with one massive claw and easily lifted the container that Maya had been struggling with. He held it over his head with one hand, showing off for his friends. "See, this is what strength looks like, not whatever you Deathworlders think you are doing." The crowd that had gathered to watch began to murmur. Maya could see beings from a dozen different species in the growing audience. Some were recording with their devices. Others were Already placing bets on what would happen next, Crax set the container down with a deliberate thud. "I have an idea," he said, his yellow eyes gleaming. "Why don't you come to the arena with me? We can show everyone what happens when a real warrior faces a Deathworlder." Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. "I do not fight for sport," she said. "Neither do I," Crax replied. "I fight to win. But for you, it would be over so fast it would hardly count as a fight at all." The crowd was getting larger now. Maya could hear them talking, making jokes about the tiny human who had caught the champion's attention. Some of them were already talking about odds, about how long she might last in the ring. Maya looked at Crax for a long moment. She thought about her ship, still broken in the repair bay. She thought about the debt that grew larger every day. She thought about the prize money that arena champions earned. Enough to buy her freedom from this place. Most of all, she thought about the way Crax was looking at her. Like she was nothing, like she was meat. "Fine," she said. The word came out so quietly that Crax had to lean down to hear it. "What did you say?" "I said fine." Maya's voice was stronger now. "I will fight you." The crowd erupted in cheers and laughter. Crax's friends slapped him on the back, congratulating him on finding such entertaining prey. Someone in the crowd shouted about getting the best seats for the show, but Maya was not looking at any of them. She was looking at Crax, studying the way he moved, the way he stood, the way his armor plates overlapped across his massive frame. She was thinking about gravity and bone density and the way different species adapted to different worlds. She was thinking about what it really meant to be a Deathworlder. Crax grinned, showing teeth like broken glass. "This is going to be fun," he said. The Grand Combat Arena filled with spectators faster than Maya had ever seen. Word of the match had spread through the station like wildfire. A human was going to fight the champion. The tiny Deathworlder was going to face Crax in single combat. It was either going to be the most entertaining slaughter in arena history, or the shortest. Maya sat in the small preparation room beneath the arena floor. The walls were covered with pictures of past champions, their faces fierce and proud. Most of them were dead now, killed by the warriors who had taken their titles. She wondered if anyone would remember her name after today. The door opened and a station medic entered. He was a tall, thin being with 4 arms and skin the color of old brass. His name tag read Dr. Philax in standard script. "I need to examine you before the match," he said, pulling out a scanner. "Arena regulations." Maya stood still while he ran the device over her body. The scanner beeped and hummed, recording her vital signs and physical condition. Dr. Philax frowned at the readings. "This cannot be right," he muttered, running the scanner again. "Your bone density is off the charts. Your muscle fiber composition is ... unusual. What kind of gravity does your homeworld have?" 1.3 times galactic standard, Maya said. Dr. Philax's 4 eyes widened. "And you grew up there? Your entire species adapted to that environment?" Maya nodded. She had tried to explain this to other beings before, but they never seemed to understand. They heard the word Deathworlder and assumed it meant humans were weak because they came from a dangerous place. They never asked why humans had survived such a dangerous place. "Fascinating," Dr. Philax said, then caught himself. "I mean, good. Luck out there? You are going to need it." Above them, the arena was reaching maximum capacity. 20,000 beings from across the galaxy had packed into the circular stadium, all eager to witness what they assumed would be a quick execution. The bookmakers were having a field day, offering odds of 50 to 1 against Maya. Most bets were not on whether she would lose, but on how many seconds she would last. The commentator's voice boomed across the arena as he introduced the match. Quillix was a being from the Centauri system, his multiple tentacles allowing him to operate several microphones at once while gesturing dramatically. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted beings," Quillix announced, "tonight we have a special treat. Our beloved champion, the mighty Crax, has agreed to demonstrate the superiority of Vorthan warriors by facing a challenger from the newest species to join our galactic community." The crowd roared with laughter and approval. "In the expensive Seats near the arena floor, wealthy traders and crime bosses leaned forward with interest. They had bet heavily on the match, and they wanted to see their money well spent. Introducing first, standing 8 feet tall and weighing 400 pounds, the undefeated champion of the Grand Combat Arena, Krax the Destroyer. The arena floor shook as Krax emerged from the champion's entrance. He had painted his armor, plates with traditional Vorthan war symbols, and his claws gleamed with fresh sharpening. He raised his arms to the crowd, basking in their cheers and admiration. Krax began his pre-fight ritual, a display of strength that was meant to intimidate his opponents and excite the crowd. He picked up a solid stone block that weighed nearly as much as Maya and crushed it to powder in his hands. He roared challenges in his native language, the translation screens around the arena showing his boasts about how he would feast on Maya's bones. The crowd loved every moment of it. They chanted his name and threw flowers down into the arena. Some of the more bloodthirsty spectators held up signs with graphic predictions about what would happen to the human. And now, Quillix continued, his voice dripping with false drama, introducing the challenger. Standing 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing 130 pounds, from the death world called Earth, Maya. The crowd fell silent as Maya entered the arena. She looked impossibly small compared to the massive space around her. She wore simple work clothes and carried no weapons. Her expression was calm, almost bored, as if she were simply walking to another job. The silence lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then the entire arena erupted in laughter. 20,000 beings pointed at Maya and made jokes in dozens of languages. Some of them were laughing so hard they had to hold their stomachs. Others were taking pictures to show their friends later. "Look at her," someone shouted from the crowd. "She looks like she got lost on her way to the library." "This is not a fight," another voice called out. "This is a public execution." Quillix seemed to be enjoying himself immensely. "I have to admit, folks, I have never seen such a mismatch in all my years of commentary. Our champion outweighs the challenger by nearly 3 to 1. His natural armor could probably stop a plasma cannon, while she appears to be wearing work clothes from the station's cargo bay." Maya walked to the center of the arena, ignoring the jeers and laughter. She had heard it all before. Every day on the station, beings made assumptions about her based on her size and appearance. Most of them had never seen a human before, and they had no idea what they were looking at. Krax swaggered over to face her, playing to the crowd with exaggerated gestures. He was grinning widely, showing his rows of sharp teeth. When he reached Maya, he leaned down until his massive head was level with hers. "I want you to know," he said in a voice loud enough for the crowd to hear, "that I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to start by breaking your little stick arms. Then I'm going to work on your legs. I want to hear you scream before I finish you." The crowd cheered and applauded. Several beings in the front row were recording every word, eager to share the champion's threats with their social networks. Maya looked up at Krax with calm eyes. "Are you finished talking?" she asked. Krax laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, I like you, little human. You have spirit. It will make breaking you that much more satisfying." He straightened up and addressed the crowd directly. "Watch carefully, everyone. This is what happens when a real warrior faces a Deathworlder. This is what happens when natural selection meets artificial selection. This is what happens when the strong face the weak." The crowd roared its approval. In the betting booths around the arena, the odds against Maya climbed even higher. Some bookmakers stopped taking bets entirely, declaring the outcome too obvious to be worth gambling on. Maya used the time to study her opponent. She watched the way Krax moved, the way his weight shifted from foot to foot, the way his armor plates overlapped across his massive frame. She noticed that his movements were slightly sluggish, optimized for the heavier gravity and thicker atmosphere of his homeworld. She also noticed something else. For all his size and natural weapons, Krax moved like someone who had never faced a real threat. He was used to overwhelming opponents with brute force. He had probably never fought someone who could move faster than he could think. The arena's Medical team wheeled stretchers into position around the fighting area. They had also brought several body bags, which drew more laughter from the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," Quillix announced, "the match will begin in 30 seconds. Remember, this is a fight to submission, unconsciousness, or death. The champion has graciously agreed to try not to kill his opponent too quickly." Maya took a deep breath and settled into a fighting stance. It was not flashy or dramatic like Krax's display. It was simple, balanced, and practical. She had learned it from her father, who had learned it from his father, who had learned it from the hard necessities of survival on Earth. The countdown began. The crowd chanted along, their voices building to a crescendo of anticipation and bloodlust. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A horn sounded across the arena, and the match began. Krax charged forward the moment the horn sounded. His massive frame thundered across the arena floor, claws extended and ready to tear Maya apart. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the quick and brutal end they had all come to see. Maya moved. She did not run away or try to block the attack. Instead, she stepped to the side with fluid grace, her body bending like water around Krax's charge. His claws sliced through empty air where she had been standing a fraction of a second before. The crowd gasped. They had expected the human to freeze in terror or make some desperate, doomed attempt to fight back. They had not expected her to move like that. Krax stumbled past Maya, his momentum carrying him several steps beyond where she had been. He spun around, confusion and anger flickering across his reptilian features. His species relied on overwhelming force and intimidation to win fights. Opponents were supposed to stand their ground and try to match his strength. They were not supposed to slip away like smoke. "Stand still," he snarled, launching himself at Maya again. Maya did not stand still. She ducked under his swipe, pivoted on her heel, and ended up behind him. Krax's claws struck the arena floor where she had been, leaving deep gouges in the reinforced metal. The crowd was starting to murmur now. This was not going according to plan. The little human was supposed to be torn apart by now, not dancing around the champion like he was moving through thick mud. Maya's movements were economical and precise. She never used more energy than necessary, never stayed in one place longer than she had to. Her enhanced reflexes, evolved from generations of humans who had survived on a world where everything wanted to kill them, allowed her to read Krax's attacks before he finished making them. What the crowd did not understand was that Maya had grown up in gravity that was 30% stronger than galactic standard. Her muscles and bones had developed under pressure that would crush most spacefaring species. Moving in the arena's artificial gravity felt like swimming through air. Krax's third attack was more calculated. He feinted left, then struck right, trying to catch Maya off guard. But she had been watching his feet, not his hands. She saw the shift in his weight before he made his move and was already flowing away from his claws when they arrived. This time, as she evaded, Maya struck back. Her fist connected with a nerve cluster just below Krax's left armpit between two of his armor plates. It was a quick, light tap that barely seemed to register. Krax roared in pain and surprise. The crowd fell silent, shocked that the human had actually managed to hurt their champion. But Maya was already moving again, staying just outside Krax's reach while he swung wildly at her. "What did you do?" Krax demanded, his left arm moving sluggishly. Maya did not answer. She was studying him, learning his patterns, finding the weak points in his natural armor. Every species had them. Every body had places where force applied correctly could cause maximum damage with minimum effort. Krax's frustration was growing. He had never faced an opponent who refused to engage him directly. His previous challengers had all tried to match his strength, and he had crushed them all. But Maya was not playing by those rules. She continued to dance around him, occasionally, landing small strikes that seemed insignificant but accumulated into something more. A tap to his right knee that made him limp slightly. A quick jab to his ribs that made him favor his left side. A strike to his neck that made him shake, his head in confusion. The crowd was beginning to understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented. The betting odds started to shift as some spectators realized that the tiny human was not just avoiding death. She was winning. Maya's strategy was one that her species had perfected over millions of years of evolution. She was not trying to overpower Cracks. She was wearing him down, targeting his weaknesses, using his own size and strength against him. 5 minutes into the match, Cracks was breathing heavily. His attacks were becoming more desperate and less coordinated. Sweat dripped from his scaled hide, and his yellow eyes were wide with something that might have been panic. Maya, meanwhile, looked like she was just getting started. Her breathing was steady and calm, her movements remained fluid and precise. She had barely broken a sweat. "Impossible," someone in the crowd whispered. "She is not even trying," but Maya was trying. She was trying very hard. She was calculating angles and force vectors, reading body language and muscle tension, applying the lessons that evolution had taught her species over countless generations of survival. Cracks launched himself at her again, this time abandoning all strategy in favor of raw aggression. He wanted to grab her, to get his claws into her flesh, to prove that size and strength still mattered. Maya let him come. At the last possible moment, she dropped low and swept his legs. Cracks, already off balance from his charge, crashed to the arena floor with a sound like thunder. The crowd gasped. Their champion was down, brought low by a human who weighed less than his left arm. Cracks rolled over and started to get up, but Maya was already moving. She landed on his back, her fingers finding pressure points along his spine. She pressed down with precise force, not enough to cause permanent damage, but enough to send waves of pain through his nervous system. Cracks screamed and thrashed, trying to throw her off. But Maya rode him like a ship in a storm, her balance perfect, her grip unbreakable. She had learned to fight on a world where the weather could kill you, where predators hunted in packs, where every day was a test of survival. This was just another day at the office. Maya released the pressure points and rolled away as Cracks struggled to his feet. He was slower now, his movements less coordinated. The combination of exhaustion and nerve damage was beginning to take its toll. "You fight like a coward," he panted, trying to regain his intimidating presence. Maya tilted her head, considering his words. "I fight like a human," she said. The crowd had gone completely silent. Now, they were watching something they had never seen before, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about strength and weakness, about predators and prey. Cracks charged again, but this time Maya did not evade. She stepped forward to meet him, her small frame somehow seeming larger and more dangerous than before. Her eyes had changed, becoming flat and cold like a shark's. For the first time in his life, Cracks realized he might be facing something more dangerous than himself. The crowd held its breath as the two fighters came together in the center of the arena. The next few seconds would determine not just the outcome of the match, but the future of how the galaxy saw humanity. Maya's hands moved with surgical precision, and Crax's scream echoed across the arena like the death cry of a dying age. 10 minutes into the match, the impossible was happening. Crax was losing. The mighty champion who had dominated the arena for 2 years was breathing hard, his massive frame shaking with exhaustion. His left arm hung useless at his side, disabled by Maya's precise strikes to his nerve clusters. His right leg dragged slightly, slowing his movements to a crawl. Maya looked exactly the same as when the fight had started. Her breathing was steady, her movements fluid and controlled. She had not taken a single hit from Crax's claws, despite dozens of attempts. The crowd was beginning to realize that this was not luck or accident. This was skill. Dr. Fellax watched from the medical station, his 4 eyes wide with fascination and horror. He had examined thousands of fighters over the years, but he had never seen anything like Maya's performance. She was not just avoiding damage. She was systematically dismantling an opponent twice her size with surgical precision. "This should not be possible," he whispered to his assistant. Her bone density readings, her muscle fiber composition, her reaction times. She is not just adapted to high gravity. She is adapted to survive. The crowd was getting restless. They had come to see blood and violence, not this strange dance of death. Some of them were beginning to boo, demanding that the fighters engage more directly. Others were silent, trying to understand what they were witnessing. Quillix, the commentator, had run out of jokes. His usual banter about weak Deathworlders had died in his throat as he watched Maya systematically destroy everything the galaxy thought it knew about human capabilities. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice uncertain for the first time in years, "I have to admit that this is not what any of us expected. The human challenger has shown remarkable evasion skills, but surely the champion's superior strength and natural weapons will prevail." But even as he spoke, Quillix could see that Krax was in trouble. The great champion was slowing down, his attacks becoming more desperate and less coordinated. Maya, meanwhile, was beginning to press her advantage. She had been studying Krax for 10 minutes now, learning everything there was to know about his species' anatomy and fighting style. She knew exactly where his armor plates were weakest, exactly how his joints moved, exactly how much force was needed to disable each part of his body. It was time to go on the offensive. Maya's strategy shifted in an instant. Instead of evading Krax's next attack, she moved inside his guard, her small frame allowing her to slip past his defenses. Her hands moved with lightning speed, striking nerve clusters and pressure points that Krax did not even know existed. Krax tried to grab her, but Maya was already moving. She used his own momentum against him, applying principles of leverage and physics that his species had never bothered to learn. Why would they need to? They had always been able to rely on brute force. The crowd gasped as Maya actually lifted Krax off his feet, using a throw that redirected his own weight and sent him crashing to the arena floor. The impact shook the entire structure, and several spectators in the front row jumped back in alarm. Krax struggled to his feet, his yellow eyes wide with disbelief. He was beginning to understand that everything he had been taught about warfare was wrong. Size and strength meant nothing if you could not hit your opponent. Natural weapons were useless if your opponent could turn them against you. Maya stood waiting for him, her posture relaxed but ready. There was something different about her now, something that made the crowd shift uncomfortably in their seats. She was not angry or excited. She was simply focused, like a predator that had finally decided to stop playing with its prey. "What are you?" Krax whispered, his voice barely audible over the crowd's murmur. Maya tilted her head, considering the question. "I am human," she said simply, but the way she said it made the word sound like a threat. Krax charged again, driven by desperation and the dying hope that he could still win through sheer aggression. Maya met him head-on this time, her small hands catching his massive wrists and stopping his charge dead. The crowd fell silent. The tiny human had just physically stopped a 400-pound warrior in full charge. The implications of what they was seeing began to sink in. Maya's grip on Krax's wrists was unbreakable. Her hands, evolved from millions of years of climbing and grappling and tool use, had a strength that no reptilian claw could match. She could feel the bones in his wrists beginning to crack under the pressure. Krax pulled back, trying to free himself, but Maya held on. She used his own strength against him, allowing him to pull her into a position where she could strike at his exposed toe. Her elbow connected with his solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs in an explosive gasp. The champion staggered backward, his armor plates cracked and bleeding. For the first time in his life, Krax felt something he had never experienced before in combat. Fear. Maya followed up her advantage, her attacks becoming more aggressive and focused. She was no longer just disabling Krax's attacks. She was hunting him, pressing him backward around the arena like a Volf driving prey toward a cliff. The crowd was on its feet now, their earlier laughter replaced by a shocked silence. They were watching their champion, their symbol of strength and superiority, being systematically destroyed by a being they had dismissed as weak and pathetic. "She is not fighting like a civilized being," someone in the crowd shouted. "She is fighting like an animal." But that was exactly the point. Maya was not fighting like a civilized being who had learned combat as a sport or art. She was fighting like a member of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain on a world that tried to kill everything that lived on it. She was fighting like a Deathworlder. Krax tried one more desperate attack, swinging his claws in a wide arc that should have taken Maya's head off. But she ducked under the strike and came up inside his guard, her hands finding his throat, not to choke him, but to find the exact spot where his carotid artery pulsed beneath his scaled skin. Maya's fingers pressed down with surgical precision, cutting off the blood flow to Krax's brain. He had perhaps 10 seconds before unconsciousness, 30 before brain damage, 2 minutes before death, but Maya was not trying to kill him. She was trying to teach him something. "Do you understand now?" she asked, her voice calm and quiet. "Do you understand what Deathworlder means?" Krax's eyes rolled back in his head as consciousness began to slip away. Maya released the pressure just before he collapsed, allowing him to fall to the arena floor with a thunderous crash. The crowd sat in stunned silence, staring at the small human who stood over the fallen champion. Maya looked around at the thousands of faces, seeing the fear and confusion in their eyes. They had thought they understood the hierarchy of strength in the galaxy. They had thought they knew who was predator and who was prey. Maya had just taught them that they were wrong, but she was not done yet. The lesson was only half complete. Krax lay on the arena floor, gasping for breath. His massive frame shook with exhaustion and pain. Every nerve in his body screamed in agony from Maya's precise strikes. He had never felt so helpless, so utterly dominated. Maya stood over him, waiting. The crowd held its breath, expecting her to finish him off, but she did not move. She simply watched as Krax struggled to his feet, his legs shaking with the effort. "Get up," she said quietly. "We are not done." Krax looked at her with eyes full of fear and confusion. He had never been beaten before, never been made to feel weak. The experience was breaking something fundamental in his understanding of the world. "I yield," he whispered. Maya shook her head. "No, you wanted to show everyone what happens when a real warrior faces a Deathworlder, so show them." The crowd was completely silent now. They could sense that something final was about to happen, something that would change everything they thought they knew about strength and survival. Krax forced himself to stand, his natural pride warring with his newfound terror. He was a champion, a warrior, a representative of his species' superiority. He could not yield to a human, no matter how badly he was losing. He gathered his remaining strength and launched himself at Maya one final time. This was not strategy or skill. This was pure desperation, the death throes of a predator who had suddenly discovered he was prey. Maya waited until the last possible moment, then moved with fluid grace. But this time, instead of evading or redirecting, she met Krax's charge directly. Her hands shot out and caught him by the chest, her fingers finding the gaps between his armor plates. The crowd heard a wet, tearing sound that echoed across the arena like thunder. Krax screamed, a sound of pure agony that made several spectators cover their ears. When Maya stepped back, she was holding something that made the entire arena fall silent, a section of Krax's ribcage, torn free from his body with her bare hands. The bone and cartilage dripped with blood and tissue. Maya looked at it with mild interest, as if she were examining a piece of machinery that had broken during routine maintenance. The crowd stared in horrified fascination, unable to process what they were seeing. Maya tossed the ribcage aside like a piece of trash. It clattered across the arena floor, leaving a trail of blood behind it. Krax collapsed, alive but utterly defeated. His natural armor proved useless against a human's grip strength and understanding of anatomy. The silence stretched for long seconds. 20,000 beings from across the galaxy sat in stunned shock, trying to understand what they had witnessed. The tiny human who they had dismissed as weak had just torn apart their champion with her bare hands. Maya looked around at the crowd, her expression calm and slightly bored. She had a job to finish back in the cargo bay. This had been a distraction, nothing more. She walked toward the exit, ignoring the stunned stares of the spectators. As she passed the commentator's booth, Quillick stammered something about an unprecedented victory, but Maya did not acknowledge him. She was already thinking about the prize money and how it would cover her ship repairs, with enough left over to upgrade her cargo capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, Quillix finally managed to say, his voice shaking, I think we have just witnessed the birth of a new champion. The human, Maya, has defeated Krax in what can only be described as the most shocking upset in arena history. But the crowd was not cheering. They were whispering among themselves, their voices filled with fear and confusion. Representatives from various species were frantically updating their databases on human capabilities. Military officials were calculating the implications of having underestimated humanity so completely. In the medical bay, Dr. Felax worked frantically to save Krax's life. The champion would survive, but he would never be the same. As the medical team stabilized him, Krax whispered something that made the doctor's blood run cold. The Deathworlders, he said, his voice barely audible. They are not the prey, they never were. Maya made it back to the cargo bay before the news feeds picked up the story. She found her supervisor, a gruff being from the mining worlds, waiting for her with a concerned expression. I heard about the fight, he said. Are you all right? Maya nodded, picking up her tools. I am fine. Did that shipment of rare metals get delivered? Her supervisor stared at her in disbelief. You just tore apart the arena champion with your bare hands, and you are worried about a delivery? Maya shrugged. It was just a fight. This is my job. But even as she spoke, Maya's personal communicator was buzzing with messages. The Galactic Combat Commission wanted to offer her a professional contract. Several alien governments were requesting meetings to discuss human military capabilities. News outlets across the galaxy were demanding interviews. Maya deleted the messages without reading them. She had cargo to move, and that was honest work. The arena was just a place where people played games about violence, but she could not delete the recording of the match. It was already spreading across the galactic network, copied and shared by millions of beings who could not believe what they were seeing. The footage of a small human woman tearing apart a 400-pound reptilian warrior was becoming the most watched video in galactic history. By the end of the day, humanity's reputation had changed forever. The word Deathworlder took on a new meaning, one that made other species check their star charts to make sure they were not too close to human space. Maya finished her shift and walked back to her quarters, unaware that she had just altered the balance of power in the galaxy. She had a book to read and sleep to catch up on. Tomorrow there would be more cargo to move, more honest work to do. Behind her, the arena was already being cleaned and prepared for the next match. But the bloodstains on the floor would take days to remove, and the memory of what had happened would last much longer. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about humanity. They were not the weak, fragile beings that their appearance suggested. They were survivors, shaped by a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. They were persistence, hunters, problem solvers, and when necessary, they were killers. They were Deathworlders in the truest sense of the word, and they had just announced their arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. In the depths of space, human colonies received the news with quiet satisfaction. They had always known what they were capable of. Now the rest of the galaxy knew too. The age of underestimating humanity was over. The age of fear had begun.